It's time now, everyone. We're gonna do the compassion trauma circle. Is everyone ready to face their past with compassion? Is that a yes? Yeah. While you were growing up, during your first 18 years of life, if a parent or other adult in the household often or very often would swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or threw something at you, step inside the circle. If a parent or other adult in the household often or very often ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured, step inside the circle. If you often felt that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special, step inside the circle. If your family lived in extreme poverty, step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle. Step inside the circle.
There is no shame.
There is no shame.
There is no shame.
I'm so good. Good to see you. How are you? Amen. Noel, good to see you, honey. Welcome. I was abused as a young girl. I was beaten by my mother. I was verbally abused by my mother. I was sexually abused by another man. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was a rageaholic. I've driven drunk. I've sold drugs. I was a juvenile delinquent. Probably my story is similar to most of your stories in here. I'm white and I'm female and nothing happened to me. So, I got a get out of jail free card. And so I'm here now because I see myself in every one of you.
I'm a traumatized child, raised by a traumatized child. My mother was traumatized as well as her parents.
Like he said, we wasn't born in the world of being evil people. My mother didn't want me. She hid her pregnancy, and she tried to flush me down the toilet. But as I learned about these things, I always asked myself what was wrong with me.
When I come to the circle and I see everybody else and she's reading off the questions and people stepping in further, and I look at my childhood and I'm like, a lot of these people in this yard are just like me.
There was one step I should have taken that I didn't take, and I saw some of my brothers and my friends take that step, and I felt like such a coward. I wasn't brave enough to be there with them when they took that step. And every round after that, I took the most difficult step.
Our traumas kept us separated. We were all on the circumference, all standing apart. But once we began to acknowledge our traumas publicly, it brought us all closer together.
In prison, you're not supposed to show your weaknesses in prison, though. But to want to do that, to walk in that circle like that, and to take each step forward was a reminder to ourselves that we still have a humanity and we worthy to be loved, though. Most people on the outside don't understand that we want to change so we can re-enter society better than what we left it.
And I think one of the things that when you was yelling that no shame and you had us yelling it out, it was freeing us too. And it was a point to where when I was looking at that and we was all looking at it in a circle, you can hear that echo, no shame. And that was very powerful, especially coming from a little lady like you.
I'm 76 years old. I've seen a lot. I don't like talking. I like to meet people that understand what's happening without words, and you one of them. Today has been one of the best days I had in my whole entire life. I've been locked up these 40 years.
Your true spirits are not violent. Your true spirits are magnificent.
Hi, my name is Fritzi Horsmann, founder of the Compassion Prison Project. Thank you so much for watching our promo for Step Inside the Circle. We're asking for donations so that we can continue our urgent and important work, educating the public about the devastating effects of childhood trauma and bringing this awareness to the men, women, and children living in prison. Our mission is to transform prisons into places that focus on education, mental health, and rehabilitation. Your donations will help us advocate for trauma-informed care, community support, and a shift in the paradigm in how we incarcerate, isolate, and dehumanize the most traumatized members of our society. Thank you again for watching.
So, Fritzi from the Compassion Prison Project, what part of the United States are you?
I'm in Los Angeles.
So is it sunny over there at the moment?
No, it's cloudy, which I love because when it gets sunny, it gets hot, and then I don't like hot.
I did a small bit of work there with the California Mandela campaign.
Really?
Combating to combat the use of solitary confinement. So they went to California to adopt the Mandela rules. And then I seen a very good documentary film about a hunger strike in Pelican Bay prison a few years ago. But I couldn't get over, some of the men were on in the solitary housing unit in the shoe for 20, 30 years ago.
I know some men who are in the shoe, and I've been to Pelican Bay, and I just got another contract to do some work with the men at Pelican Bay. But a lot of the yards are level 2 yards now instead of level 4. So
what's the difference?
What's the difference?
Yeah. What's the difference between the level 2 and 4?
So a level 2 is you can roam around. Is less secure. Level 4 is high security, and level 5 I would say is the shoe.
I see.
They don't call it a level 5. They call it restrictive housing unit. Like it's solitary. It's not good for the brain.
Yeah, some of the names are benign. They don't tell you much about the project or the program, but I was invited to come to California actually in February to speak at a prison, but the prison was called the California Rehabilitation Center. Sounds like a treatment center or a rehab or something, but it doesn't tell you it's a prison. Did you go there? No, I didn't actually. I was invited to speak at Pitzer College as well, and they were covering flights, accommodation. It was a great trip. I had it, and I got declined a visa because I have drugs conviction. And then you can apply for a waiver, but just the way things are in the United States at the moment with people with convictions, they're going through people's social media to see if anybody's showing support for Palestine. And I just thought it's just a bad time for an Irish man with a criminal record to try and go over there. So I just left it off for now.
Yeah, I know. Well, we're in this state, so we're going to deal with it the way that we just have to deal with this now. This is what we're dealing with. This is acceptance, and acceptance is the only way we can the only way we can move forward. If we argue with reality, we lose, but only 100% of the time.
It's a good way to live your life, isn't it? Acceptance.
If you can, I work on it all the time. My son just broke his leg, and he's not accepting it. So, and I'm having, so I'm watching all my stuff come up. But it's the glory of getting older. You're like, okay, this what's happening. It's okay.
Yeah.
Are we recording? Are you putting this in there?
Yeah, we're recording now.
And are you going to edit this, or are we full on?
If you're happy to leave it in, I'll be leaving it in because it's quite natural way to start a conversation. I'm not like Tucker Carlson or Glenn Greenwald, or I'm not a journalist. I just have conversations with people, interesting people, and my core audience here is people in Irish prisons. So this podcast goes into there's a prison TV channel, and theoretically 5,000 people in prison can access this on any given day. So it's a great way to get information, ideas, and just to get into the people that's in the prison, you know. So that's why I wanted to talk to you, because you're part of the Compassion Prison Project.
That's right. And, Ireland has a special place in my heart. I did a documentary on James Joyce called Joyce to the World. And I went there, and I've started going to Ireland in the late 90s. So and I keep going back. And, I went back a few times to do the documentary, and then I've been to Northern Ireland. And I don't know, I think Northern Ireland is also Ireland. And I think I'm working on that division that is, an arbitrary land division, right? But the heart of Ireland is still the heart of Ireland, and I don't care what religion you are. But being in Northern Ireland, I would see there were marches down the street from the Protestants or the Unionists or whatever they call it. And to me, that's just an act of violence. And so we really have to start looking at the violence that we're all participating in, even if it's just justifying our own anger towards something which is violent. Anytime you find yourself justifying your anger, your righteousness, it's all, first of all, like you're living in the past, right? You're living in the past. The past we cannot create from the past. We can only create in this moment from this part of our brain. The minute we're in the past, we're in our amygdala, we're in the fight flight part of our brain. And we are not creative in that part. We are focused on the threat being the past, the threat being something that doesn't exist anymore. And the thing about your brain, though, when you relive the past, you relive William James's, whatever he did, or you relive the Troubles, whatever that is, you're in a state of, your body acts as if it's happening now. So your body sweats, your fight or flight system goes on, cortisol goes through your body, your heart rate goes faster. So you're unable to come up with a solution. And I don't know why I'm talking about this immediately instead of telling you what I do, but I think this is so interesting. If we get this, we're going to change the world. And I believe that the people in prison are the ones who can do it, because you have the most time and you have the most ability to reflect on who you are and what you've done. And the fact that you have hurt people or you've hurt yourself is something you have to grapple with. But guess what? We all have to grapple with it. So, but you're doing it. You're faced with doing it. You're faced with it. And we don't face it out here. I mean, I'm facing it. So that's why I can talk to you, because I've done things that I'm horrified by, right? I have so many things to say, but here's the quote. Here's the quote of the day, and it's a little thick. It's a little thick to unpack, but just bear with me, okay? Because this is it. You get this, and we can move forward. So it's by David R. Hawkins. He wrote the book called Power versus Force. And when you're in a lower vibration, you're forcing things to happen. When you're in a higher vibration, you're powerful and things happen on their own, or they happen because you decide that it's so. Like I'm deciding prisons are going to be a place of healing, transformation, and purpose. That's my decision. And that's a higher vibe than saying prisons are a place of punishment and disgust and disgrace, right? Which is an old pattern that we're no longer. I don't believe in that. I think, and when we all don't believe in it, it changes, right? So that's on you. You want that prison to be different? You decide it is so, and it will be. But that means no more violence, no more shenanigans, no more this and that, no more, hey man, what you got? Blah, blah, blah. No. Walk the straight path. You walk the straight path. The officers are less hypervigilant. They can trust you, and you can trust yourself. So anyway, so here's the quote by David R. Hawkins. Blame is the world's greatest excuse. It enables us to be limited and small without feeling guilty. You get that? But there is a cost. The loss of our freedom. So here you are in prison. People are blaming you. People are blaming you for what you've done, which is correct. And they've lost their freedom by blaming you because now they don't take responsibility. So it's all about responsibility. And that's what prison to me is. It's a place where we can be responsible for our participation in the world. So the minute you blame somebody, yeah, but I'm all about learning about childhood trauma and understanding what got us here. But what I'm really interested in is, okay, now what? Now, okay, we've been traumatized. Our parents were alcoholics. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was a rageaholic. She would hit me and she would yell at me, call me a whore. My sister is, she's an alcoholic. And we stopped talking for 2 years, but now we're back talking. They would fight in front of me. So if your parents are fighting in front of you, as a child, you think that's you being yelled at. Just like watching a movie. When you watch a movie and you get excited because it's an exciting scene and everybody in the audience is excited, we all are together excited for the good guy who's running away or whatever's going on. But we're all in there. We're all in that, and our bodies are reacting the way the character's reacting. And that's how we know we're all connected. So the same thing when a child is watching their parents fight, the child is in the fight as well, even though we don't think so. And some parents say, yeah, they're 2 years old, they won't notice. No. This is when the brain is developing. This is the key here. Everybody's noticing. Everybody is being affected by this violence in the home. And this is where parts of us fracture, especially when parents divorce or separate. Parts of us, when the parent leaves, parts of us leave because we've built our lives around those two people. Anyway, back to blame. So we've lost our ability to have agency in the world, to have an effect, because we're waiting, as Phil Stutz says, to get paid. And nobody's coming to pay us. No one's going to pay us back. Even though someone apologizes to you, you still want to blame them. And we're in this cycle of blame, and that's a way to keep us from ever changing the world. Because the minute you say, screw it, I forgive you, I forgive myself, now what? We're in a whole different level, and it's a high vibe right now. Now we're in a high vibe, right, James?
Absolutely. And you said a lot of interesting stuff there. But to go back to what you began with when you were in the north, if you went to the north of Ireland today and you went to Belfast, and in the Catholic community, the nationalist Irish community, you would see a lot of Palestine flags. And if you went into the Ulster Unionist community, you'd see a lot of Israeli flags. And you mentioned marches. And marches are they're a method to assert cultural dominance and displays of power, and they have been used traditionally in the north of Ireland by the British Unionist Loyalist community to march through Catholic areas to remind everybody that you are part of Britain and we are more powerful. If people may be further afield, if they're trying to understand why there is so much solidarity between Ireland and Palestine, if you look at last week, Israelis marched in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is very sacred to the Muslim faith, and that's a similar display of dominance. And I think that can bring up a lot of violence and anger and powerlessness in people. And then second, what you mentioned there as well around blaming people. I think when you're blaming people, I think that you're powerless then. And I think and until you stop blaming people, when you're blaming somebody, you're handing your power over. But when you stop blaming people and you look at your own self and your part in it, and you can't take anybody else's part in it on your own, I think you get that word you used, agency. You get some control back and authority in your life, and then you're not a victim. I think blame and being a victim or a victim mentality go hand in hand, and as long as you're pointing out the saying, there's many more fingers pointing back at you. I think you just stop the blame, take ownership, take control, and accept, as you said. And then you have, right, where do we go from here? Then you have agency, then you can make a plan to get out of it.
Yes, James, but you brought up Palestine. And so you've also brought up a victim. There's a victim paradigm that you're reconnecting Ireland with the Catholics, with the Palestinians. So I want you to know that there's still a level of blame in your discussion. So, and this is hardwired. Look, I'm not blaming you for blaming, but it is something you're doing. And so we have to see here's the thing about all of this is we're all one person. We're all one unit of energy. And the minute we start dissecting it and taking a position, we lose the game. The game is unification. That's the game. So of course, there's Ukraine, there's Palestine, there's Catholics, there's poor people. The minute they become something separate from me, they're no longer part of me. And we're looking for somebody to blame. We're looking for, okay, so the unionists are all for the Israelis, but now they've lost the game too. The game gets lost the minute you take a side. The only way I don't think we should take a side is in sports, only because it's so good for men. I think men need to feel like they belong to something. But then there's the hooligan thing, right? So we also have to think about that. It's like it does not.
Do you know what's a great unifier? I'm in recovery from addiction myself. And in the recovery rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, you will find people from all walks of life, all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of religions and cultural divides, but they have one thing in common, and then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what you look like or where you're from. We have this in common, and then I think that's at a more basic human level in a room like that is where all that other labels are pushed aside, and the real humanity is there, where you can help your brother and sister, and you want nothing in return, only the betterment of them and the support from them. I think something like that is rare, and we're blessed to have it.
Well, and that's the thing. And back to David Hawkins, he says that when we're sitting in these groups, which is what my curriculum does, it's another group of bringing the collective to a higher level of, I'm raising my hands, you can't see it, raising the collective group to a higher level, which is connection. Connection is one of the most important things that we can give to each other, because that's how we're wired. We were in small tribes until recently. Now we're living in these isolated communities, but we thrived in connection. And someone gets hurt and the whole tribe says, "What happened to you, my dear? What happened to your spirit? Let's get you back." Instead of, we're all feeling like we're isolated. And isolation is one of the keys to feeling like you want to be an addict. I mean, and that's what happened to many of us as children. James, do you know how many aces you have?
Too many.
You have too many. I have 8 of the 10, right? And so an ace, in case your audience doesn't know, an ace is an adverse childhood experience, and there are 10 of them. And these are the top 10. But there's a lot more after that. So don't think that, losing a grandmother when you were 2 and she was your primary caregiver wasn't an ace. That's an ace for sure. Whatever it is, or your father abandoning you, whatever it is, that's an ace if it affected you and it still lives inside you. But the top 10 aces are physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect, not feeling loved or cared for, or important or special, which is, to me, all children are. Physical abuse, not having enough to eat, have to wear dirty clothes, parents too high to protect you or take care of you, take you to the doctor. Domestic violence, parents divorced or separated, parents or caregiver addicted to drugs or alcohol, parents or caregiver mentally ill, suicidal, or depressed, and a household member going to prison. So I have 8 of those. And if you have too many, you probably have 6 or more, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
6 or more. I mean, and so what I've found, I've surveyed over probably 4,000 men and women living in prison, is the people in prison have the most aces there are. That's it. And in our society. And the thing is, what I learned, and this is what happened, I read the book, The Body Keeps Score. I don't know if you guys can read it. If you can get
I
a hold
read
of
that.
it.
I read that book, and I interviewed Bessel van der Kolk. So a lot of the people in the prison might have seen that podcast I did with him.
Oh, I want to see it. I've interviewed him too. So look at that.
He's a great guy, isn't he?
He changed my life. So yeah, he's amazing. And his book is amazing. Anyway, I read that book. I learned that my behavior wasn't who I was, right? Did you learn that reading the book?
I did, and what I learned as well is how traumas or life experiences or events can impact your health and well-being in the longer term. Many years later, you might have think you have dealt with it or forgotten about it, or you might never even recall what happened to you. But it can manifest itself in chronic illness and mental illnesses and stuff like that, which it helps. When you read a book like that, it helps join the dots in your life, doesn't it?
Completely. But also to me, the big one, I mean, it's health, your health outcomes, but also your social outcomes. And so when you see all these people in prison, there's a film that I did called Step Inside the Circle, which I hope you will also upload to the prison channel.
I'll put it into the middle of this video, so when you mention it, it'll show, and then we'll come to this bit.
Great. So when you see Step Inside the Circle, that's based on the ACEs quiz. And so they're taking steps, coming closer together. And just like you said in your Alcoholics Anonymous group, people are realizing they're more similar than they have differences. They have this amount of trauma, and that is like one of the first like major wake up calls. And why we sit in these groups, these small groups, is so we can talk about this, and especially for men. I mean, women, because women. So here's the men's brain, and tell me if this sounds right. So a man, when he gets stressed, he goes to his amygdala, to his fight or flight center, and his solutions are either using violence or isolating and probably medicating. So those are the solutions for men. That's because they're wired on the right side of their brain. Most of the stuff goes in the right side of the brain, and the connection between both hemispheres isn't as intense as the women's. When women get stressed, because they have this part of the brain is talking to this part of the brain. And so we feel something here, we get words for how we're feeling. Men don't have the words. They don't have that connection like women do. So when women get stressed, they go to their cortex and they talk about it. They talk and talk and talk. And so if you have ever lived with a woman, which most of you have, you'll see that a woman will want to figure out what's going on. Why did she say that? Why did he say that? What did he do? Blah, blah, blah. A man is it drives a man crazy. But it's really important to notice the two solutions that we biologically have. Because women, back in the tribal days, we were sitting around talking and figuring out the problems together. When men were together, they were going on a hunt. They were focused, they were quiet, and they had to go out and make their goal, similar to sports, right? Or similar to war. So when men are going out to the hunt, they're quiet. And then they make the kill, which is a traumatic event, right? They have killed something. So together they process that kill, walking back with the animal, but they're quiet again, probably. They're probably not talking, but they're helping each other process, similar to bands of brothers and similar to sports events. So does this sound right? And the other thing that I learned is that men like balls in space. The ball going in space is very interesting to a man. A woman could care less about a ball. Most women could care less about a ball in space. But does that sound right to you, that you're interested in a ball in space?
Explain what's a ball in space.
Soccer or a football. Or
absolutely. And
right?
As well, I can definitely relate with the isolation medication. That would definitely be one of my traits back in the day. Yeah. Maybe I've better control over it today through the support of good people and personal development down through the years, but that's the default.
Yes, but it's so important to notice this. So like I'm watching my son, he just broke his leg and he just wants to sit there by himself and medicate and be alone. And, I'm just like, what's happening? How are you feeling? It's like driving him nuts. But for men to start understanding this about themselves, that they're back in the solution of either, yelling at somebody, punching a wall, killing somebody, whatever. These are our solutions. These are the men's go-to solutions. And that's why being in groups is so important, because it overrides that instinct to just be alone and figure it out on yourself. And that's what you had when you were out going on the hunt. You were with your men. You were with your fellow men. You were same with the sports team. So a victory or a loss, you get to process it with each other. And that's the thing, is men need to process all of this stress that they're going on through life with each other. And what gets them into trouble is when they're by themselves. And here you are in prison, right? By yourself, in a cell, by yourself. So it actually exacerbates the whole thing, similar to solitary. So solitary doesn't do anyone good, and it doesn't actually solve any problems. But what it does do is it does give you that space, if you can get a little bit of solitary, just a little, because we all could use a little, to get your house in order. Figure out what the plan is, what are you going to do, because it's not if you're in solitary, it's not working. And my heart goes out to you, because I know sometimes when we're traumatized, and to the extent that a lot of you are, we just react. We're just reacting to the world, and we don't even know why we're doing it or saying it. So we do things we don't like to do, and then we have the shame about having done that thing, and then we're disgusted at ourselves for doing this thing. And so at each part, it's like, who am I? And that's when I read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's like, no, you're not a bad person. You've just done things because of your trauma. Unprocessed trauma is a dangerous, dangerous thing in our society. And so, it just makes me want to cry. I was reading the book again today with Bessel van der Kolk. He was just talking about, these war veterans who come home and just can't believe what they've done. And then they wonder why they can't connect with their children or their wives. When we experience this trauma, we don't know how to connect anymore. And that's why these groups are so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And in his book, which I found very interesting, was he was working with the Vietnam War veterans who had witnessed and perpetrated and been the victims of unimaginable violence, which manifested itself in certain ways. And then he was working with victims of a traumatic event like a rape, a sexual assault, a physical or emotional abuse, and they had the very same symptoms as the war veteran.
Yes.
And it's like, so it doesn't really matter what the event is how your body experiences it. The person that has been through unimaginable violence in a war and the person that has been sexually abused can come out in the exact same way.
Sexually abused or physically abused or emotionally abused. And the other thing is, and this is what we're not talking about, which is something I really want to start having us think about. If a war veteran has PTSD and the same symptoms are true for children and adults who have experienced similar, basically living in a war zone, which a lot of poor people are living in, inside and outside in a war zone. We're giving our children PTSD, right? Our children, I had PTSD. You probably had PTSD. The people sitting in prison had PTSD as children. And now, it gets exacerbated with being in prison. So we really have to really call it what it is. They call it CPTSD. And, D is the disorder, but it's really the injury, right? Because we can heal from all of this. But we really have to start really saying, what, PTSD is not okay. It's not okay for anybody in this world. And if they do have it, we've got to take care of them, and we've got to help them feel human again, right? Because these war veterans, these children, are living in a state of fight or flight, a state of hypervigilance, and a state of survival mode. Great when there's a bear in the room, right? But as Nadine Burke-Harris says, but what if the bear's living at home, right? And the system can't turn off. The hypervigilance, the fight or flight system doesn't turn off, and you cannot learn in a state of that. So a lot of you who've had a hard time at school, that's because your brain was geared towards survival. It wasn't geared to thrival, which I call it, but it wasn't geared to learning, developing, processing. No, you can't do any of that. And also your immune system shuts down, right? So if you're in a state of so your ability to fight disease goes out the window because you're fighting for your life, or so your body thinks so. Your body keeps the score. That's what Bessel van der Kolk says. And so we've got to teach the body that it's safe. And the only way we can do that is if we decide that we're in a safe environment. So everybody has to agree a prison is now officially a safe environment. I mean, I don't know how we do that, but that's on you, because you got to put your brain on this. This is the key to transforming. First, okay, so you transform yourself, you transform your cellie, you transform your housing unit, you transform your prison, then you go out and show the world how you've done it. Because we don't know what to do. Look at us, we're just, we're nuts out here. We're nuts. Looking at our phones, trying to get a feeling of goodness in ourselves when we're already good. We're solid. We're solid in there. We know that, and you know that. Everybody here listening to this knows deep down they're the most excellent being there is, because there's no other James Leonard in the world. He may have the same name, but there's only one James Leonard, and there's only one Fritzi Horsmann, and that's extraordinary. And that applies to you, whoever's listening to this. You're extraordinary. We cannot have another of you. So what can you contribute to the world? Because that's what we're here to see. That's what we want to do. And I want you all to do with our curriculum Trauma Talks. Here, yeah. I'll show you. This is the first workbook, and we're working on training facilitators to go throughout Ireland and bring this to all the prisons. And
I interviewed one of them, actually, from Belfast.
Who'd you interview?
His name is Tony Crow.
Tony, he's one of my facilitators. Oh,
that's right.
I love him.
Gentleman.
I love Tony, and he's going to be the facilitator trainer, and we're going to get this program throughout. So ask your prison to bring Trauma Talks, because it's changing lives. It's really changing lives. And
can you explain it if there was prison administration people watching?
Absolutely. So Trauma Talks, it's a 16-week course, and it has 16 films. So it's me talking and other films that we've gathered and made sure it's okay to use throughout the world. The best films to explain what trauma is. So there's like, what is trauma? There, what are the symptoms of trauma? Why are you acting like this? What are ACEs? We just went through. The Wisdom of Trauma, which is a film by Gabor Mate about addiction and healing.
I interviewed him as well.
Me too. Okay.
He's a great
two
man indeed. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Great man. Two great men.
Two great men, and two men with so much compassion and so much understanding about how urgent this information is. It's such to me, and that's why I'm on this thing, and I know that's why you're doing this thing, because it's mandatory. So then you also get a workbook, and you go through the workbook, and then you sit every week and you talk, and hopefully you get to talk for at least 2 hours about what you've just watched. And what, like I told you, we need that serve and return. I didn't tell you that part, but we need the serve and return, which you'll see about in developmental trauma, which is episode 5. And then there's attachment theory, traumatic brain injury in the US. 85% of the men have at least one traumatic brain injury, but it's usually 4 to 12 traumatic brain injuries. And then we talk about violence, and we talk about shame and accountability, forgiveness, vulnerability, blah, blah, blah. But you get it. Like, this is the curriculum for you. And people are reconnecting with their families. They're forgiving themselves. They're forgiving the people who've hurt them. They're stopping blaming, which, to me, then they're stopped lying to themselves. That's the other part. The thing is, we're so disgusted by what we've done that we lie about it, right? And that's the only way we can free ourselves, is when we tell the truth. Because
that's a big thing for people that commit sexual offences in particular. It's very hard to shame, and it's very hard for them to accept what they've done. So a lot of the times they will not admit to it. They will never talk about it or acknowledge it.
Well, so here's the thing about sexual abuse. Most people who are sexual abusers have been abused sexually. It's a compulsion. It's a compulsion to get your power back. Same with violence, though. Same with violence. When I would yell at my son, there was an unconscious need to be powerful, because I felt so, so disempowered and frustrated and annoyed and angry. And it also reminded me as a child when I wasn't getting taken care of. It's, my own pathology has led me to really seeing what I did to my son. I hurt my son, and that's my crime. That's my crime of the century. And I'm spending the rest of my life doing what I can to help him heal. And if I can stop another mother from hurting her child, that will be my gift to the world, because no parent wants to do this. No parent wants to hurt their children. And when we do that, we feel so bad about ourselves, but we don't even understand why we did that. That's what trauma does. And it's just such it's such an awful, well, it's
Yeah,
such what?
I spoke to a woman friend of mine today, and we were talking about addiction, and she was telling me a moment, maybe like in recovery rooms, we talk about a spiritual awakening or a glimpse of awareness that acts maybe as a turning point or a moment to pivot. She was saying that they were having a party in the house, cocaine and alcohol, and she heard noise. She looked up the stairs, and her son was there with his bottle, and he was a toddler. So she went up to lie down with him, to get him back to sleep. But as she was lying with him, she was thinking about, like, will he ever just go to sleep so I can go back down? She was thinking about the cocaine downstairs, and it was in that moment she was like, "What are you thinking? What are you doing?" But nobody wants. I think nobody ever sets out to be a poor mother or to have bad parenting, but life circumstances can happen, and you can get caught up, and you could become unconscious and just driven by a drink or a drug or whatever it is. But there's sometimes you do get these glimpses of awareness, a bit of a dose of reality, don't you?
Yes. And so Carl Jung is like, I just kind of got how important Carl Jung is to lifting up our society. But Carl Jung says it's really important that when we're doing this healing, we understand the science, but we also understand the spirit. Because this is in the spirit of the spiritual. It's a spiritual awakening as much as like a scientific awakening, to understand the mechanics of this trauma, but also how it fractured us, but also that we can pull it together with our spirit and our soul and our compassion and our forgiveness. But those are really high level things that all of us are capable of. And when we uplift ourselves by forgiveness and forgiving others and being accountable, that accountable is so important, because it says, look, I hurt my son, right? I hurt somebody. It's not happening again if I can help it. And if it does, you're damn well sure I'll be apologizing right away. And I will do what I can to make it right. That's all you can do. That's all you can do in this world. I don't know why I'm so emotional, but I really feel that
it's real. It's real for you.
But I really feel it's so important that we forgive ourselves, and we forgive ourselves, but we also really help the world transform with the wisdom that we've got. And that's what you guys are. That's what's coming at you in Fast and Furious. If James is on it, he's bringing you all this material. So you just get on this. But I will tell you, one of the things that happened with Trauma Talks, and this is something for an Irish, some people in Ireland would understand this. One of the people who took the course in Northern Ireland was a gypsy, and there was a curse on him. And the person who because I don't know what happened, but the person who put the curse on him heard he was doing this course, and he lifted the curse. And there is magic in the world, and gypsies probably have some access to this magic that we don't. But the fact that this gypsy was doing this work affected the other person, right? That's what happens when we do this work. When we do our work, it ripples out beyond anything we can imagine. That's the thing. They say with a crime, you affect 200 people. But I think with healing, you affect thousands, because you've moved from a low level to a high level. You have forgiven yourself. You have forgiven everyone. You've stopped blaming. I mean, this is ideal. Look, I blame all the time. I'm a blame factory, but I'm I'm also on the other end of this blame factory now. I'm listening to all of the thoughts, so it's getting processed, and then, you know, saying, thank you, person, for showing me whatever you showed me. So thank you for the lesson, this blame lesson I had to learn, whatever. Turn your blame into gratitude so that you can move it fast, because, you know, that we want to like sit there and be pissed off all the time. Now, how are we going to change the world if we're sitting there like, it's, the word is perseverating, just like, ugh, getting stuck in that nasty I told you so baloney, right? I mean, we gotta elevate this world. That's, to me, that's what you guys in prison, and women, I'm sorry, there's probably one prison here that is a woman's prison, I believe.
Oh yeah, there's two.
There's two.
Oh.
Well, we all got to get on this. But 95% of the people I work with are men, so I always say guys, so sorry. But I'm counting on you to elevate yourself and then elevate the world, because that's what's going to happen when you get it, like Tony Crow got it, lickety split, you know. And we got to stop blaming the other side, whatever that other side is, because we're looking for somebody to blame so we don't have to deal with our own crap. And that's it, you know. Let's deal with our own crap instead of projecting it onto the world and waiting for the world to come and rescue us, because that's a victim. And we're not victims, we're warriors. This is a warrior world we're in, especially Celtic people. Jesus.
Yeah, but you know, just to, and I didn't mean to go into the politics, was just kind of the way I played out, but I've one more kind of political, maybe, question or point to make. You know, when you're talking about blaming and victim mentality and all that, like we get that in Ireland, and I think in any kind of former colony or oppressed people where you're raised on songs and stories of oppression and resistance and all these things, it's ingrained into you.
Yes.
But I think in the north of Ireland, between Catholics, Protestants, Unionists, Nationalists, there is peace today, and there is like people share cities, they share services. You know, there is no violence. It's, you know, people live in harmony now for the most part. And there is radicals, a very small minority on either side, but for the most part, people are moderate and they respect each other's culture and they just got on with it. But that only came about through the peace process, of which Bill Clinton had a role at the time, where people were seen as equals, and as every man, woman, and child is an equal, and everybody has a right to vote, and everybody has a right to dignity and self-determination, and all these things. But what about in countries where they're not seen as equals, and they're not seen as not everybody has the right to vote? Like, is it more difficult for them to kind of get out of the victim mentality when they're like? And I suppose another part of the ACE is that some might critique is the lack of structural forces at play. But structural violence can be a trauma as well. Like, if you're born into a system where you have no hopes, opportunities, you can't leave, you can't go anywhere, you have to go through checkpoints, which is the way it used to be here. I know it's not like that no more, and people can get on, there's less violence. But do you think that there's a way to actually have peace when people aren't treated equally?
Well, okay. So
I know this is very complex
that's a very
geopolitical
big
stuff.
question. The thing that we have to start local. We can't, like, yes, there's unimaginable things going on in the world. So if you want me to take that on, like, then I'll just get dysregulated. So the thing
we get the moderate people on either side, and we fan that flame, I think.
Well, what we do is we work on ourselves. We start here, because it's the only way we can actually affect the people that are being marginalized in other places. But right, you know, down the street from my house, people are being marginalized in poverty, right, you know, 10 blocks away. So we can look at our backyard and see what can I do here. And I'm not saying, you know, look, it all needs to be figured out. My focus is on prisons. My focus is on the people in prison who can actually help change the world. So, but when you use the word colonization, what you've done is you've used a buzzword of victim. So you've actually activated the victim again. You put them in the past. So be very careful about the words
Yeah,
you're
but
using.
it's hard. It's hard to explain your past without using the vocabulary available to you to describe it.
Agreed. But what is the effect you want to have in the conversation? Do you want
Just
to put
for you
people
to
in the
understand maybe why the Irish people might have that perspective, you know, because cause it's interesting to talk to you because you're American, you're objectively looking in.
yes,
So I don't get to speak to people like this often enough. I usually speak to Irish people, which is fine. But so I take this opportunity to get your perspective on somebody external person looking in, and I can understand how somebody would look in and see the Irish. They're kind of maybe living in the past or have that victim mentality, and I'm trying to explain where that comes from because of the centuries that of history that we have. It's very much caught up in the identity of who we are, and it actually
Yes.
brings me to another point. Did you ever come across Eckhart Tolle?
of course.
Where he thinks like he talks about people getting caught up in the identity of
Yes.
the group, the in group, and if you think about you mentioned football hooligans, or you know, like they get so caught up in the identity of I'm a supporter of this club that I'm
Yes.
gonna burn this city down. You know, it's like
Exactly.
people get so caught up in the identity of whatever group they're part of that they become unconscious people and they can do crazy things.
Well, and that's the key here. Eckhart Tolle is so great about talking about this. It is being conscious. It's like spell am I casting? Words are spells. So like I said, like the word colonialism, that's a spell. So you cast the spell on the conversation. Suddenly people are feeling like a victim. Well, look, we have African Americans here who've been slaves, right? So there's that victim. We have victim stories throughout the world, every city, everywhere there's a victim story. But I will tell you, this is what I will tell you. I've been to Ireland and I've been to Northern Ireland. If you look at the world of Northern Ireland, and I don't want to get in trouble for this, but
Speak freely.
all right. But the people in Northern Ireland are like 30 years behind Ireland, okay? Because of what they've experienced, because of this division, because of this, they're in a more of a state of fight or flight than the people in Ireland. And obviously this is one island. We are talking one island. And we have this division, and you go to the malls, and there's really no innovation in those malls. You go to the malls or I don't even know if they're malls in, I can't even think. I'm just thinking of Dublin, and there's not really many malls, but it's just a bubbling society, and that's because there's not the troubles are not hanging over you. There is no Schenkel Road hanging over you, and so that is, to me, I don't know why my phone just keeps. Sorry about this.
Okay.
The Schenkel Road is this reminder of the past, and you drive by it. Every time I go, I visit it, but it's a reminder of the past. And so Northern Ireland is living more in the past, and so when you're in the past, you're not in the cortex, so you're not innovating. That's the thing. And so be careful of the spells you're casting, because we're stopping innovation. We're actually keeping the victim alive. Look, I cannot, I'm not Irish, so I don't know, and I don't know the stories, but if we keep the past alive, we don't create a new world.
It's interesting though, in terms of the victim and how strong the victim mentality can be, because, and in the North, it's important to say as well, in any conflict, there's people that don't agree with the violence. Like there's Palestinians that love Jewish people, and there's Israelis that love Palestinians, and it's the same in the North. And in the North, I know many unionist people that are great people, the best people. So we're talking about in historical terms. But in the North, whether you're on the nationalist Catholic side or the unionist Protestant side, they both have that. They both can feel like victims. A song or a slogan that the British side will say, no surrender, no surrender, you know, even though they would be seen as like the power or the colonizer, to use that word again, by the other community, but they both see themselves as victims. You know, I think
Yes.
that victim label is very strong, and people hold on to it, don't they?
It's so true. And but it's actually, it's like, I think it's a mechanism that's holding us back collectively. We're collectively, so, we have this whole woke thing in the United States, which to me is a step back, because it's really talking about the victim. And I want to honor people who've been hurt. That's what my work is. But I also want people that have been hurt to start the healing process and to realize their inherent value and their inherent agency to get on with their lives and their purpose and what they're here for. So I don't, if we start bringing the past into the present, we're stuck again. And so just to watch, because see, the thing about being a victim, you get a lot of juice from it. You get a lot of juice. You get a lot of pity. You get a lot of, oh my God, I can't believe this. But what you don't get is a sense of who you truly are. And to me, that's what we're here for. And so it's rising above the feeling that the world owes us something, and going into service, like pushing yourself to say, how can I help? How can I help the world? And most people in prison have that impulse. They were like, I want to help the youth. I want to get to the youth so that they're not following in my footsteps. And to me, that's we can play the victim as long as we want. And look, whatever happened to you, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It happened to me too. But I am moving on now. I am moving on spiritually so that I can help the world move on. And part of it is talking about this. And I know this is going to make people angry. Why wouldn't it? You got to drop your story. You got to drop the whole story. The story that I'm not, that's the thing. We have the root story, the trauma story, which is I am not enough. Covering up that story is look what they did to me. So I have a reason to be not enough, but you're still in that root story which is a lie. So what the real story is, I am magnificent, I am powerful, I am divine. I hope that resonates with you. Yeah. I am divine, and I can actually affect the world with my positive influence, with whatever it is, with whatever I'm creating. Like, do you see the difference in the two sides, and this is a polarity. We're here to experience polarities. Black, white, male, female, bad, good, right? Which is violence.
Well, in your part of the world, in Los Angeles, where people's identity can be caught up in the color of their clothing, red and blue.
Yeah.
And you have the gangs in the prisons. So you would have seen people coming in maybe with that tied to that identity of Blood, Crip,
of course,
Latino Kings or Aryan Brotherhood, and then you would have seen the transformation then of people letting go on that and be their true selves and being hand to hand, Black, white, Asian, Latina.
Christian, Catholic, Protestant, there's no difference. It's a gang. It's a gang. And it's deliberate. And whoever that king was who decided to create the Church of England, man, he set off Henry VIII, is that him? Yeah, well, he set off a whole nother way of controlling people, right? Religion is a way of controlling people, and then having them feeling better than somebody else is similar, right? It's similar to the victim, because deep down you don't feel good enough, so you need somebody else to project, like, at least I'm not a Catholic, or at least I'm not a Protestant, right? So, and also all these little identities, which Eckhart Tolle talks about all the time. It's a way for us to separate from ourselves. This is a very good solution that the powers that be have, is that we're separate from you. You are different than me, but that's not true. Because like we talked about earlier, when we're all watching a movie and we all feel the same thing, when we're seeing that shark rise from the water. We're all like, we all do that. That's how connected we are. And we deny that. We're denying that. And so, you know, we're mirrors of each other. So the minute you forgive, you're allowing space for another person to forgive. And that's to me, that's the F word. That's the real F word, is forgiveness. Because when we get that, when we forgive everyone and we forgive ourselves, we create a new world. Book to read, book to work. It's called A Course in Miracles. Highly recommend that one. Go through the workbook. It's a daily exercises for 365 days. I did that 2.5 times. I should do it again, because, man, when you get that you are here, you are perfect. Everything that is happening for you, not to you.
Yeah.
Do you get
I'd
that?
like to get your I'd like to get your perspective on something phenomenon in your country and across Europe and in Ireland at the moment is a rise in anti-immigration sentiment.
Same thing.
You know, for people that have little, I mean, those that have less for their problems. How would you speak to somebody that was full of anger and aggression or resentment for somebody that has a little less than them, and that blame? It goes back to that blame and that victim and othering.
Well, it's the same thing, and politicians know this. Trump is saying, yeah, we got to get rid of the immigrants. He's saying your problems are not within you. We can blame the immigrants for why you're not thriving, why you don't have a job. So now they can displace their own sadness about their situation and their expectations about how life should be, right? Expectations are one of the worst things we do to ourselves, because
Let down.
well, we let ourselves down, but we don't accept. The minute we're in acceptance, we're back in our cortex. When we're the expectations, we're like, this didn't happen, it should have happened. Well, that's the past, that's regret, that's blame. And we need somebody to blame. Otherwise, we've got to go back to ourselves. We have to turn it on ourselves. Who wants to do that? God. Well, that's where freedom lives. Freedom is, as we said, that quote, that's where the freedom is taking responsibility, 100% responsibility for your life, for who you are, for everything that you've done in this world, like I'm doing with my son, like I do with my husband, like I do when I drive them nuts with my talking. I'm working on curbing that so that they can live in peace. But that's what consciousness is being aware of what you're doing in the world. And I would argue many of you who are in prison were unconscious, just like I was when I hurt my son, right? So I'm not going to blame me. I'm just never going to do it again. But you see the power of that? The power of that is that, yes, I did this. Yes, I hurt my son, and it's not happening again. And I have agency in my life to make sure, and I will read the books and I will do the work. And there's a worksheet, and it's in the workbooks of trauma talks, 2 of them. One is radical forgiveness and radical self-forgiveness. So you do those workshops. I have to do it again on myself with the son, because I got to keep working on that. That's work, because you really have to look at how you're blaming yourself, right? That's another pattern of blame. And I love talking about this stuff, because I really I discover little hints. Just telling you, I get to tell myself, right? Because, the definition of compassion, it's not that I'm here to heal you and, I need to fix you. It's no, I recognize your darkness because I have the same darkness. And
Yeah.
We are all capable of being Mother Teresa, and we are all capable of being Hitler. And we're all on the spectrum. But it's in that knowledge of our darkness and bringing in the light that changes the world, right? So that's what you got. That's what I want to see in you. And I will come to Ireland and meet you guys so you can tell me the stories of your transformation. Because I know
we
this
can
talk
make
is
that
gonna-
happen. We can make that. We definitely make that happen. But in Eckhart Tolle and other people in that space talk about the laws of attraction. and frequencies and a vibration and a high frequency, a low frequency, positive, negative. But you know, when you're in the mentality of blame victim and you're othering and it's negativity, you seem to not really have good outcomes for yourself when you're in that space. And I bring it back to my own self when I was in addiction and going in and out of prison and involved in all sorts of negativity and homelessness and all these things. I only ever thought about, you know, robbing, stealing, blaming me mum, me dad, blaming the court, the judge, the prison officer. And what did I ever get for it? A life of misery, until I actually just took ownership of my life one day. I went into treatment and all of a sudden my world opened up and all these opportunities started to come my way when I stopped blaming people and stopped being a victim. And it's like you do vibrate on a higher frequency and all these things start to come into your life with minimal effort.
That's right. That's called power. High vibe, man. High vibe. We do high vibe. That's the deal here. Stay in the high vibe, because
And
you
it's
know.
for everybody.
Yes, it's not just prison, but when oh God, what's the smallest prison you've got in Ireland? Do you know?
We've got a woman's prison in Limerick.
Okay, and how many women there?
There's about 50.
Okay, and what's the smallest men's prison?
The smallest men's prison is about 300 people in Cork prison where I am.
Okay. Okay, so here's the gauntlet I'm laying down. So women in Limerick, let's get busy. Men in Carp, it's Carp?
Cork, C-O-R-K, Cork.
Oh, Cork. We would say Cork in the United States, Cork.
I know, yeah, that's a very Cork accent.
Men in Cork, so talk to your administration, get on this, and let's make Ireland have 2 of the first trauma-informed prisons in the world. That's what we can do. I really want you guys to remember who you are ASAP, because so the minute we get this, the whole world changes. People, so this is one of the stories that blows my mind. One of the guys, he got kicked out of his house when he was 10, and he did trauma talks for about 8 weeks, and he realized that his mother was traumatized. She threw him out at 10. He realized that she was traumatized, and he forgave her. And for the first time in his life, 30 plus years later, she is coming to visit him at the prison he's at. But do you realize? Talk about a victim story that you can live with for the rest of your life, and everyone would totally say, yes, that she's an asshole. But look what happened, right? Talk about high vibe, right? He gets to see his mother, who we know how much she loves him and how much pain she lived with that decision that she made, right? How much pain did she live with, right? What I went through has nothing with what she went through. And he did it, man. He changed the world with that. Do you get that? Do you get how the world changes with that energy, with that forgiveness? That's off the charts. And that's what's capable for all of you. So it's not just a, what?
You mentioned trauma-informed prison. So do you know if we have a trauma-informed prison? Do you do work with prison officers?
Yes. I have a curriculum for them too. I just need the money but they can, if funds are tight, have them just sit in the trauma talks class, or have them do it themselves. All the information's there. It's just all there. It's the same information. It's outlined a little differently. But let's start with the key here though. So nothing changes until we change, until the people in prison, living in prison, decide it's going to be different. Because when you walked into prison, you decided it would be a violent place, right? That was your decision based on what you've heard. But what if you decide, no, this is not a violent prison anymore, based on what I've decided and what everybody else, especially in Cork, you only got 300 guys, especially in Limerick, you only got 50 women, decided today. That's what you can do. It's you make a decision, and then you see it starting to manifest. And then there'll be those 3 or 4 people that are still stuck in the past, right? They just like, no effing way. Well, keep doing your thing, and the law of attraction, you will attract them to seeing what's happening. So, the power of your high vibe raises the vibe of everybody else, and that's what's happening. There are some people who still want to do shenanigans. They want to sell drugs. They want to do the thing. Let them, until they realize that they're betraying themselves, and that's the thing. It's the lying, the justification of committing crimes is what got you into prison, right? Justifying, I'm going to steal because I deserve it, or whatever. What was your lie, James? What did you say? What did you say to yourself?
I was in addiction, so anything went. It was like
Yes.
going to prison was like an occupational hazard for a drug addict, and that's the way I looked. It was just something that you had to endure every so often,
But the thing about lying, though, is you are lying about who you are, right? And that's part of the blame thing. So this is all tied up. But there's a woman, her name is Anne Lembeck, and she wrote a book called Dopamine Nation. And she talks about telling the truth. When you tell the truth, it strengthens your cortex. And it's so important for addicts to tell the truth, because that's what addiction is really about, lying to yourself. And it's betraying yourself every time, because you're saying, tomorrow I will stop. Tomorrow I won't do the fix. Tomorrow comes and you do it. So you're lying to yourself. And that's one of the, to me, that's one of the biggest tragedies of life, is lying to yourself. I watch my son do it all the time. He says, I'm going to, at 12 o'clock, I'm going to stop and do whatever. And then 12 o'clock comes and he doesn't do it. But when you're teaching yourself to be true to yourself, just do little tasks. Say, at 10 o'clock, I'm going to lift the weights 10 times. That's all you have to do, or whatever it is. Or I'm going to write to my mother, whatever. Just do one little thing. Prove to yourself that you can keep your commitment to yourself, because building a relationship with yourself is the most important thing you can do. Strengthening that you can rely on who you are. There's nothing more important, because then people can rely on you, right? It ripples out. All the work that you do, all the micro compassions that you do to yourself, for yourself, not only change your life, but change the whole world. But we just see it in little bits. Suddenly my son isn't scared of me anymore, right? Suddenly he's relying on me. But that took years. Because I betrayed him, right? And I betrayed myself. So but this is all consciousness. This is all about becoming aware of who you truly are. That's the thing. You were lied to as a child that you were a piece of crap, and you believed it. And that's what got you into prison. So now I'm here to tell you, you're amazing. That's what's going to get you out of prison.
Absolutely. You're correct, and I think it's a good positive note to end on. I think your passion has really come true on this call. Like, you just gave yourself to it. You went there, and it's just really. I didn't have to ask you why you got into this work. I think it really showed through. You're living and breathing this stuff. This isn't just a job for you. Like, this is a calling, I think.
Big time. It's big time, because my true north, the thing that I want to do, is end child abuse. If we end child abuse, imagine what this world would look like. Let's end child abuse in Limerick, and let's end it in Cork. And for all you other prisons, I'm talking to you too. We're not just talking to the smallest ones. I'm talking to the smallest ones because we can get it done quickly. Let's get it done quickly and show the other prisons what's possible. But, Northern Ireland's way ahead of you. And so, let's make that the competition. Can Northern Ireland beat Ireland? Can the island of Ireland become trauma informed? That would be one of my greatest gifts to the world.
I don't see why not. Listen, the next time you come over to our humble island on the Atlantic Ocean, make sure you touch base with us, and maybe we can get you into a couple of the prisons to meet some of the people inside there. And maybe we can get you to meet some of the administrators to see what we can do around bringing the Trauma Talks program into some of the prisons. I think it's innovative, and it's creative, and it's new, and it's a solution to a problem that exists. And I think, from my experience, all solutions are on the table, and you have a good one.
I have the one, but thank you. I mean, I have the one for people in prison. I really believe it. And you know, if you want, we can play. I can send you episode 1 of Trauma Talks, so you can run that, so everybody can see what it is, and see if that's something you guys want to bring. Because my heart, you know, I did a documentary on James Joyce, so I learned. Although I never read Ulysses. Don't tell anyone.
It's a tough read. I've never read it either, but it is meant to be very tough.
Well, the page 1 has Latin in it. It's like, come on, James, at least get us in 3 or 4 pages. But then Finnegan's Wake, forget it. Anyway, I've been very curious about, and one of my first boyfriends, Sean Sweeney. So, you know, I got a thing about Irish.
That's his Irish. He sounds as Irish as Guinness.
He is. He's in New York. Anyway, that's my brain and heart have been thinking about Ireland for most of my life, and to give back to Ireland would be a beautiful thing. And so help me do that, would you?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
We'll definitely get that done. So we'll take this further offline. But for now, thank you for your time, Fritzi.